One of the great things about so-called abstract art is that it puts down the burden of representation. It sort of says, I don't represent. But to replace that, it needs to find other languages. Now, it seems to me that the other languages are all philosophical. They're all propositions about the way things are, or the way things might be, or the way we'd like things to be. So, at the heart of that, somewhere, there are three difficult propositions. The first one is scale. Scale is profoundly mysterious. The bigness or smallness of a thing is profoundly confusing. And we have to keep readjusting ourselves to what a scale really is. The second one, which is as important as anything else, is, if you like, space. And space, of course, is real and imagined. Dream space, for example, while it's imagined, is perfectly real, or absolutely plays with the real. And the third is time. And time affects both space and scale. Art can do this very strange thing of making time seem a bit longer, allow you for a little moment somewhere to enter a kind of dream where time seems to be transformed. It's, again, as I say, profoundly mysterious and happens, or can be intended in a work and allowed to play a role.
Kapoor was born in Mumbai to an Indian father and an Iraqi Jewish mother. He leaves his country aged 16, lives in a kibbutz in Israel, and finally settles down in London in 1973 in order to study art. That is where he finds not only his own artistic language, but a tool which proved to become fundamental: psychoanalysis.
Psychoanalysis always has been very important to me as a process and as a way of thinking about the object, because it acknowledges that there is no innocence in activity, in our interactions both with the world and with each other. They're all motivated by other unsaid, unspoken dreams and aspirations. So why not so for art? evidence of the world, whatever it is, can never be innocent. It is always subject to self-reflection. Psychoanalysis, of course, is one of the tools that is at our fingertips. We can use it. It's a tool that gives information about how we read the evidence of the world. So, for me, that's been a very important process. As I say, objects are never innocent, and we that look are never innocent. We always come with anxiety. And it's the way that objects engage anxiety that I think is at least one of their measures of complexity. And I think I'm deeply interested in that sense of the anxiety both of the looker, of the viewer, and of the object itself. It's the complexity that it engages that I think is compelling. Not just when we look, but when we look again and again and again.
When I Am Pregnant, 1992. Mother S. Martin, 1985.
I've often said that I don't really have anything to say as an artist. I'm not really interested in what I have to say. It's not the point. Who cares what I have to say? I don't know more than anyone else knows. I think the process in the studio is very important, however. The practice of the studio. So the studio is a place where an experimental thought process takes place. And it's lived in objects of different kinds or images of different kinds. The moment one begins to reflect on what's going on in those objects or images, there's a certain process that takes place between me and the object, which is not that different from a psychoanalytical process. In psychoanalysis, one might say that you have the analyst, the so-called patient, and, if you like, an imagined third. It's an imagined third presence, which is the result of some kind of psychic contact between the two. So there is this imagined third. It's somehow always there. Now, the studio too is full of those ghosts, the same imagined third. And the process of making the work is often a process of giving form to that, or allowing that unknown to either remain unknown and invisibly present, or giving it a kind of reality. And it's that sort of dialogue which has quite objective criteria. It isn't my kind of inner psycho world who cares. I don't care about that. And nor should you as a viewer. It's when we occupy that third object that it's suddenly an object that you too, as a viewer, will recognize. And I think that's and it's a subtle, kind of complicated bit of figuring out. But actually it's a poetic object. In the end, it's a poetic object that you know and I know. We all know somehow. Especially when we call it art and give it a particular physical presence. to be made unbelievably well. Because it's only when the mirroredness is of a certain perfection that the space of the object becomes active. Before that, what you look at is the surface. When it's beautifully made and perfectly finished, you end up looking at the space of the object. It then becomes a philosophical object. Until then, it's a bloody object. I'm not interested in objects. I'm interested in the moment that an object becomes, if you like, this other thing. And in order to occupy this particular kind of space, it needs to be made incredibly well. And as I say, it then becomes a mathematical or a philosophical object. An object that does something else with its object. That's what I'm interested in.
In his studios, located in the south end of London, Kapoor creates sculptures which are often mirrors or biomorphic objects reminding budding forms. Over weeks, his assistants shape, carve, varnish, and polish the skin up to perfection. Models are conceived for future monumental creations such as Cloud Gate in Chicago, a building in Manhattan, or a subway station in Naples.
I think to make new art, you have to make new form, new space, new time. Well, there's no question about it. You have to, somehow. But newness may not come out of newness. Newness may come out of oldness. There's a wonderful, wonderful story from Rilke. It's one of my favorite poets, in which he speaks about being a schoolboy. And as a schoolboy, the gramophone had just been invented, and in class they were required to make a recording of their voices. And so they had a wax disc with a little contraption with a little needle, and it made a little shaky line. And then they played it back, and it was this wonderful sound, almost as if from some other time, some other space. Years later, he's studying anatomy in Paris, and one of the objects that he comes across, of course, is the skull. On top of the skull, rather like the fold of the hands, is a little inner joint between the two halves of the skull, a little crack that we all have. And Rilke remembers when he sees this that it reminds him of the crack in the gramophone record, and he wonders what is the sound of that line in this skull. So the ancient sound of the joining of the two halves of our skulls. To me, this is a wonderful work, of course, but it's also, if you like, inventing a new object out of a very, very old one. And it has an incredible grace. It goes to the beginning.
Kapoor's studio is more of a laboratory than a factory, and his warehouse looks like a museum rather than a gallery. An archaeological exhibition space of accomplished or unrealized works of art. For Kapoor, the new is born from
want to do is to fail, and fail often, fail fast. Not take months and years to fail at something, that's terrible. But to go through ideas as quickly as possible and fail at them, if they have to fail, but fail fast. So that there is, if you like, this continual process of excavation. It is completely archaeological. It is an excavation. And while it has some kind of inner content, it is mostly objective. And that relationship is the one that matters. So the studio is a place where I'm always trying something out. Not necessarily a place where me and my assistants who work here with me, where we make things. You know, making things is sometimes, it's a byproduct. It's really not a factory. It's not a place of manufacture. It's a place to kind of try it out, see if it works. If it doesn't work, well, good. Let's make the next one.
Past, present, future. 2006. My Red Homeland. 2003.
My red homeland has been interpreted as referring to India. As far as I'm concerned, it may or may not. It's not really the point. For me, I'm really interested in red. My homeland is red. And it's red because red is not a color, just like any other color. You know, we are red. And it's that redness the title of the work refers to. But really, for me, color relates to light. That's what Turner's all about. That's what most great adventures in the history of color are about. Radiance. Color's also very good at darkness. You know, the opposite of radiance. I mean, red makes a kind of darkness that you can't get with blue or with black. Red darkness is much darker than blue darkness or black darkness. And the reason is very simple. It's psychological. It's because we know red, in a way, at an interior level. You know, the wax pieces do this in a very particular way, because it's not just color. Again, it's color and stuff. Very meaty, fleshy stuff. And we have huge quantities of it. That's how you see the color is operating in a kind of darkness.
Az çoktan itibaren istemiştik biz.
Biraz daha ileri. Hı? Biraz daha ileri.
In November 2010, Kapoor returns to Mumbai for his first retrospective exhibition on his native soil. In the Bollywood studio, his assistants prepare a showcase confronted with much emotional expectation. Back to the origins, or merely another exhibition? Kapoor keeps refusing to be considered an Indian or English artist. To his mind, his art can do without borders.
I think there's always been this sort of idea that there's a fundamental difference in view between East and West. I'm not sure that it's really true. In many different directions, what we have to do is to understand that we have to decompartmentalize our way of thinking of people and culture. We have somehow to break that compartment, because what it does is exoticize. It says there's some exotic place out of which people from, wherever else come. That is too touristic a view, it's too simplistic a view. My work as an artist over many years has been to say, please, stop thinking of me as an Indian artist because it's not helpful. What's important is to say that, artists search, if you like, for all sorts of languages, whether they are so-called the languages of the East or the languages of the West, to find a way to speak as an individual.
S-Curve, 2006. Step, 2007. Non-object, plane, 2010. Non-object, spire, 2008. Shooting into the corner, 2008-2009.
İki yıl atış yapmıştı.
The very pregnant pieces propose the idea that, as the pigment falls on the floor or the objects on the wall, spreads itself on the wall, it almost defines the surface of the floor, and out of it comes an object. But like a kind of iceberg, there's an invisible object under the ground or behind the wall. It's as if it's only showing a little, like the fin of a shark, in a way, showing a little part of itself. Also, I think I'm really interested in the idea that colour, when it's